Excellent. All right. Well, good morning, everybody. We are going to start our session. Welcome to our ebook session, Strengthening Your Research Impact in a Digital Analytics Era. Discover the difference with Science Direct. Our speaker of today is Jonathan Simpson. Jonathan is Publishing Director for Engineering and Technology in Elsevier Science. For Engineering and Technology in Elsevier Science and Technology Books Group, based in Oxford, UK. He has over 20 years experience of ebooks and scholarly publishing in a variety of roles in book acquisitions, author support, strategy, partnership development, and program leadership. In addition to ensuring that Elsevier publishes the highest quality content, he is focused on making knowledge available effectively in order to improve outcomes for authors, students, researchers, and the wider community in which we live. Jonathan, I leave you the session in your hands. And just a quick reminder to all our attendees, at the end of the session, we are going to have 5 to 10 minutes to answer all your questions, which I kindly ask you to please write at the Q&A chat box, which is at the Zoom bar directly. Thank you, and let's start with our webinar. We hope you enjoy it. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalia, and thank you everybody for joining us today. I'm grateful for your time. I hope that we have an interesting hour for you here. As Natalia said, I'm going to speak for approximately 45 minutes. And I do want to ensure that we leave a good amount of time for questions at the end of the session. And I'll very much welcome your questions and engagement. So before I start, I want to extend greetings to all of our guests, greetings from Oxford in the UK, which is where I'm based. I wish that the weather outside the window here was as pretty as it is in the pictures here. But I'm very lucky to be based in such a beautiful city, and I'm very pleased to be speaking to you all today. So let me just give a quick overview of the topics I'm going to discuss today. The talk, the forum is split into 6 parts. I'm going to talk a little bit to begin with about how we have a customer-driven strategy, and our customer-driven strategy is absolutely fundamentally based on recognizing the needs of our customers. And so that's about understanding our customers. So I'll start by talking a little bit about Egypt and the research landscape there and what we see of that and how that helps us in our efforts to support you and the wider communities that we work with. I'll talk about discovery and how Elsevier can help to discover content and help users to solve their own particular needs. And we do that through technology. So I'll talk about how technology is at the heart of Elsevier's work and our platform. I will talk about how, by combining technology and world-class content, we can help you, librarians, our partners and our customers to enhance your investments. And then I'll talk a little bit at the end about our content acquisition strategy, how the quality of our content, I think, underpins everything we do. And that's an area that's very close to my heart, of course, being a publishing director. And then, as I said, we'll end with time for questions and answers. So let's start by looking at Egypt. Egypt is a vastly important customer for us, and an important partner. And if you look at Egypt's overall research performance, even perhaps despite the challenges that we've all faced over the last year, we see a picture of strength. Scholarly output in Egypt is high relative to its peer countries. So here you can see just some data points for Egypt compared to the wider African situation. And Egypt really stands out as a very strong country. And I'll come on to perhaps show some details about other peer countries in a minute. But with scholarly output growing in Egypt, despite the challenges in 2020 of COVID and beyond, what we have to ask is, how can we help you to continue this picture? How can Elsevier's tools and content ensure that you continue to see success in your goals of growing output from Egypt? Here's another interesting view. This is something that we see repeated across the world. This chart is showing the increase in remote access in the year 2000. Now this is data for Egypt, and what you can see here, the orange chart, part of the bar charts here, show the growth in remote access to Elsevier content throughout this year. And I don't think this should be surprising. What we can see here, of course, is the impact of COVID, and we see similar results from across the world. But what this is showing is that despite the challenges of people perhaps not being able to spend time on campus or actually physically in libraries, of people, of researchers, of students having to work from home, that libraries are continuing to provide value to their patrons. And that value is by enabling continued access to content. And a little later in this presentation, I'll talk more about how Elsevier can help you to continue to serve the needs of your patrons by enabling access despite the challenges that we see in the world at this time. And here's another interesting view. I'm afraid this chart isn't terribly clear, but I think what it represents is I hope clear. In addition to focusing on research, I think it's very important for us to acknowledge that the content that Elsevier provides also enables and supports remote learning. And of course, with so many students now having to work from home and study from home or away from their campus location, we can see that textbook usage has also grown. The data on this chart shows textbook usage in Egypt growing rapidly again through this year as students have moved towards remote study. And this is in line with what we see globally in terms of Elsevier's textbook usage. But again, the reason that we're showing this information is to show how we recognize the challenges that you are facing and how we can help to address those challenges by enabling access to textbooks, by enabling access to research content, and by working with you and partnering to ensure that your patrons are able to access this content in the most effective way possible. So let me show this data here. This is a more detailed look at Egyptian research trends. And I think this is very interesting. You can see here a selection of peer countries. So we have data for Egypt, which is represented by the green line with the dots. And we've selected a range of other peer countries, as I say, South Africa, Tunisia, Algeria, Morocco, just to reflect the strength of Egyptian research and some of the trends that we see. And again, we want to recognize this because being able to identify these trends helps us to see what's important and to then have conversations with you, our partners, our customers, about how we can sustain these trends. So how can we sustain growth in scholarly output, which we see in Egypt? How can we sustain improvements in quality, which are reflected in the field-weighted citation impact of content coming from Egypt? How can we help sustain the number of publications from Egyptian authors and researchers that sit in the top 1% of journals? And how can we support and sustain the number of publications coming from Egyptian authors that are in the top 1% most cited articles? And you can see in the bottom right-hand chart here how in 2019 of these peer countries that we're looking at. Egyptian authors, Egyptian research climbed above South Africa in terms of the percentage of publications in the top 1% most cited publications. So these are very important benchmarks and metrics for us to understand and work with you on. And finally, with all of these indicators in mind, I want to also look at this view. This is a view that we're going to come back to a number of times in this presentation. This is a look at what we call topics of prominence. These are research areas which are the most prominent in the fields. And what we're looking at here is the topics of prominence for Egypt. So this is research and authors based in Egypt. And what it shows is how the work that is coming out of Egypt is highly interdisciplinary and highly overlapping. And we see this globally. Research trends are, of course, towards interdisciplinary work. There's relatively few subjects nowadays that stand alone, that are pure topics. The majority of research is interdisciplinary, where researchers from one discipline need to understand what's happening in another area, or indeed collaborate with colleagues from other areas. And you can see here represented in this chart how from Egypt research is overlapping interdisciplinary. The larger the circle, the more prominent that work, and the closer to the center of this chart, the more interdisciplinary that work is. There's a lot of data that sits behind this view, but what it really does help us to show and to see is how interdisciplinary research is, and how interdisciplinary that research is from Egypt. And following this session, if anybody has questions or would like to understand more about how the data behind this type of presentation and representation works, I'm sure that my colleagues would be happy to follow up with you on that and help you understand more about this. So, having looked at that introduction to the world of research in Egypt, let's now turn to perhaps how Elsevier can help, as I say, to continue these trends. So given the continued global challenges that we see arising from COVID, but also arising from increases generally in the speed of research and the need to share research as effectively as possible, our goal at Elsevier is to partner with you to help meet your needs. And as we see these needs, we understand your needs are about meeting your researcher and your students' demands. And how can we do that? Well, we can help to support their productivity and help you and your patrons and ultimately your institutions, your university, to be set up for continued excellence, to continue the trends that I showed earlier in terms of research output and research quality. So how do we do this? There are 4 key areas here, and I'll spend the next 10 minutes or so talking more about each of these. But broadly, these areas focus on one key substantial message, that we feel that the best way to help provide you with the information that lets you support your patrons and to achieve your mission, your goals, is by providing access to content from books and journals in a seamless way and in a way that's enhanced by technology. We think of this as broad access. Having broad access to a whole worldwide range of high quality content supports the best possible outcomes. So this is about looking to unlock the demand for book content along with journal content. And I'll explain why that's important in the next slide. It's about looking at co-usage behavior and understanding how in the real world students and researchers move between books and journals seamlessly in order to understand topics and get to the answers that they need. It's about understanding how we can see that when when patrons have access to both journals and books, that we see the usage of both increase. And this drives better understanding and ultimately better outcomes. And those outcomes are represented in the final wheel of this chart. It's the one I just mentioned, how that having access to content of books and journals supports this highly interdisciplinary research world that is fundamental to both Egypt and, of course, the wider global world of research. So let's talk a little bit more about each of those areas then. So first, Science Direct is about supporting comprehensive discovery. Science Direct as a resource provides the widest range of trusted, high quality, interdisciplinary research content that's possible and available. So we've talked about interdisciplinary before. Let me give a quick case study of why I feel interdisciplinary content is so important. And I'm going to talk about COVID here, but frankly, we could use case studies from across engineering or the social sciences or the life sciences to illustrate this point. Tackling COVID is obviously an enormous global effort at this time. And there are many, many, many people in all research groups who are focusing on this task. So let's just look at one case study that we have here. A research team that involves a pharmaceutical scientist working as part of a wider team who are looking at repurposing existing drugs as possible treatment solutions for COVID. Now, in this particular case that we have in mind, the pharmaceutical scientist may have a background in chemical engineering, but is working with biochemists or immunologists or other colleagues from the life sciences. And her focus may well be, for example, on looking at how to manufacture a potential treatment for COVID. But in that team-based environment that she finds herself, her work will be interdisciplinary. Even though her background may be in, for example, chemistry or chemical engineering, she needs to be able to communicate with colleagues who have backgrounds in biochemistry, for example, or immunology, as I say. So in the world of science today, work is interdisciplinary. So what does that mean for content? What does that mean for the way that students and researchers build their knowledge? What we see from spending time with our customers, spending time with librarians and really understanding their needs is that there are two fundamental working approaches here. Researchers, students, scientists spend time getting up to speed. And to get up to speed, we see that one of the most effective resources is books, is foundational content, our reference works, our handbooks and review articles. It's this content, what we call foundational content, that allows a researcher or a student to enter a subject, to start to understand it, to get up to speed. But once they're up to speed, they need to stay up to date. And this is where the world of original research comes from. Content that comes from research articles, from journals, from serials. And it's the combination of these two areas that helps drive the most effective outcomes for researchers and ultimately for librarians. So let's look at that a different way. Here you can see on the left-hand side of the screen, just two books that we publish. So going back to my earlier case study, we have a researcher perhaps working in the area of tackling COVID. She may well be using books on molecular virology to really help understand the fundamentals of a subject that perhaps she's less familiar with. So she's getting up to speed with books, and then she's staying up to date by accessing journals content. Here we see just two of Elsevier's many journals from the life sciences area on clinical virology and the Journal of Virus Eradication. Now, of course, the most powerful combination is when our researcher can access these books and these journals together in a seamless fashion and discover the content that she needs. And it's this combination that we feel is the most effective in getting up to speed and staying up to date. So when we think about the ScienceDirect platform, we think that the ability to move between these content types should be seamless. And in order to build knowledge from this seamless work, ScienceDirect has a whole range of different types of content and provides this unique cross-linking access to a whole range of content types. So on ScienceDirect, users can move seamlessly between major reference works such as encyclopedias, which provide an absolute ground level foundational information. They can find over 30,000 ebooks, monographs that really help them get into a subject and understand more about a topic. They can find over 6,700 serials. These are up-to-date, comprehensive introductions to hot topics that provide the bridge between journals and books that help focus users on areas of science that are crystallizing. They can find over 2,500 journals, more journals than any other publisher. And they can access all of this content via over 330,000 ScienceDirect topics. I want to talk more about topics in a moment, but topics are what help users, researchers, access this content in the most appropriate and the most useful way by quickly guiding them to the content that they need in order to solve their problems or answer their questions. So with all this content available, let's look now at a little bit more about co-usage and what underlies this interdisciplinary content that I talk about. It's actually very hard to represent co-usage, but what we can see by tracking the journey of our customers and users on ScienceDirect is we can see how users move between content, between different disciplines, between different products, between different content types. And we have a lot of data that backs this up. And again, we can share some of the data that's specific to Egypt. But what you can see represented here is how co-usage between books and journals from customers in Egypt works. And what we see is that 32% of our customers who are accessing books in Egypt are also then accessing journals content. And we can really dig into the numbers that sit between these. And sometimes the connections are obvious. Sometimes we see customers who move from an engineering book to an engineering journal. That's perhaps not surprising. But we also see high numbers of users who move between perhaps less or unrelated disciplines. So users who move from an engineering book perhaps to a social sciences journal, or who move from a chemistry book across to an earth science journal. What this helps to show us is how the needs of users are indeed interdisciplinary, and how offering seamless access to a whole range of content therefore is critical in order to help them achieve their goals and meet their needs. So let me talk now about how then Elsevier facilitates this, how through our investments in our platform, we're helping to deliver this seamless access and hence helping to deliver the maximum impact for our customers and their users. So Elsevier is a technology business. We have world-class content, but that world-class content is only best served if we have world-class technology to back it up. So Elsevier invests in technology to help solve our customers' problems and help drive outcomes. And there's some interesting facts here. We know from our research that average researchers spend 4 hours per week simply searching for content. And then we know that those same researchers spend an additional 5 hours per week reading the outcomes of that. Now that's over a day a week of work spent simply searching and reading. So the more that Elsevier can invest in helping to reduce the amount of time that researchers spend searching and to help them reduce the amount of time that they spend reading, means that they become more productive. So to support this, Elsevier employs over 1,500 technologists. These people focus on building platform capability and platform solutions using artificial intelligence and a whole range of smart technology to help researchers get to answers in the shortest possible time, and then to be able to understand and apply those answers as easily and as quickly and as efficiently as possible. So technology underpins absolutely the Elsevier mission of helping our customers and their users achieve their goals. So I want to give a few examples of how this technology works and how we are implementing technology on Science Direct. So as we saw earlier, discovery and the amount of time spent trying to discover content is a critical challenge. Users spend hours working through content. So in this new age of discovery, we need to find approaches to help our users find the answers they need, find them accurately, and find them quickly. And with this, Elsevier deployed in 2017 a technology called Topic Pages. It's a global solution, a free layer that sits across our content on Science Direct. And Topic Pages, using machine learning, using AI, comb through all of the content that we have on Science Direct and automatically produce summaries of that content, which then become discoverable through the search layer, whether that's through Science Direct or perhaps through a remote platform access such as Google, to help access the content quickly and efficiently. And every month, the technology behind Topic Pages now drives an average of 30 million visits to Science Direct per month. And those visits come from 4.8 million hyperlinked journal articles in Science Direct. And those hyperlinks are driven by 330,000 individual topic pages, pages which create an entry point or a gateway to the content that researchers and students need. We feel this is one of the most efficient ways to quickly find the content that users need. And we can see the results of this. We can see that demand for fundamental knowledge, which is being provided by Topic Pages and this technology, is growing year on year on year. This chart shows in the orange line the percentage of Science Direct visitors who are viewing a topic page. And you can see the orange line is 2019, the blue lines below are 2018 and 2017. And you can see how, as a result of this technology, topic pages are growing almost exponentially in terms of their number of views and their usage. So in 2017, we saw about 2.5 million topic page views. 2018, the number was up to 18 million. And in 2019, the last full year that we've got data available for, we saw nearly 39.5 million topic page views. And we fully expect that number to continue to rise sharply. What this tells us is that Topic Pages and the technology behind it is truly solving a need, solving a problem that researchers have of being able to discover and access content quickly and really get fundamental knowledge from the wide range of content from journals and books that's available on Science Direct. So topic pages are helping people find and access content, but Elsevier uses technology in other ways as well. So we've launched in 2019 a recommended article service. So for users who are logged into Science Direct will now help them to discover recommended articles using technology that understands their needs and what they have been looking at. We can provide recommended user articles, and 1 in 3 of users in 2019 were using this service, were following and reading the suggestions made by Science Direct. This helps users discover content more effectively and more efficiently. Another technology that we have launched is the ability for users to track their reading history. I can speak from personal experience on this. My wife is a researcher at Oxford University, and she says one of the greatest challenges she has is remembering what she's looked at. And of course, the more effective the tools that we can provide to help users go forwards and backwards through their research workflow, the better. So a reading history tool helps people to do this. It allows users to track up to 100 of their most recent articles. And we know from the way humans work in reality that people don't work in a linear fashion. They go forwards as well as backwards. So this tool helps support that. It simplifies the work and makes the ability to discover and rediscover content much more effective. So other tools and technology are perhaps in the architecture and the backbone behind Science Direct. So I talked earlier about how this year, in the year of COVID, we've seen remote access increase enormously globally and in Egypt as well. So remote access enables research discovery both on and off campus, and it means that work can continue even when people are compromised in where they can work. And Elsevier is here to support you in this and support you to support your users through what I'm unfortunately sure will be an ongoing COVID crisis into 2021. So we can offer multiple access options, including federated authentication, email domain-based access, registration ID based access, VPN and IP range access, and proxy server access. So if you have questions about this and how Elsevier can help you and your customers to achieve the most effective remote access, please do follow up with us after this session. So just a few more views then of technology. So we know through the technology that we enable through the investments that Elsevier makes into Science Direct, that users are increasing year on year. We can see this. And this demonstrates the power of a truly user-optimized platform supporting discovery of the highest quality content. And you can see here the number of unique users growing year on year for Science Direct. We see on Science Direct over 500,000 searches every day. And from our work with our customers, 9 out of 10 researchers are telling us that using Science Direct does indeed shorten the research process, does indeed take some time out of those 4 hours of searching and 5 hours of reading that I talked about previously. And by taking time out of this process, we're helping you to help your users become more effective, to become more productive. So let me end this technology section just with 2 more slides. I just want to give you some insight into how investing in our platform is a continuous process. For Elsevier, as I said, we have over 1,500 technologists focused on improving the usability and discoverability of our content. So in 2020, some of the areas that we're continuing to focus on are continuing to improve and apply machine learning to help discovery, to reveal better insights more quickly and more accurately. This is an ongoing process. It's fundamental to the investments that we make. We're continuing to invest in improving the speed and the ease with which content can be found and accessed. As I mentioned earlier, we're continuing to enhance user personalization to track the user journey, to enable recommendation, to individualize the experience of using Science Direct. And we're also focusing on improving the user experience for our authors, for our journal reviewers, and for our editors, because Science Direct isn't just a platform for readers, it's also a platform for authors, of course, and the service that we provide to authors to ensure that their content is accessible by the widest range of readers is critical for us. We're continuously striving, therefore, to make knowledge relevant and discoverable. So let's look now at how all of this helps unlock impact for librarians, for libraries, and for the patrons they serve. What we can see is that when customers have access to books and journal content together, that usage of journals increases. And so this is about the co-usage that I talked about earlier. The ability to access books and journals improves outcomes because the power of those two content types together helps users understand the fundamentals of a subject. And you can see here that some data. These charts, the lines on the graph here show at the bottom, this is journal access by non-book customers. So we actually see that customers who do not have access to books as well as journals, the rate of journal access for those customers is actually going down over time. Whereas customers who have journals and books, the orange line, is increasing, and customers who have all access to all of our content types, is also increasing. So I think this reflects one way that by having the most effective platform, we're helping libraries to add the most value to their patrons. So this is a very similar chart. The chart on the right is comparing journal usage of customers with books versus journals usage of customers without books. And you see a clear trend for an increase in journals usage where those customers also have access to books. So this is about removing barriers to content. By removing barriers, we're helping users to deliver, or rather we're helping librarians to deliver essential insights to their users. We're helping librarians to ensure that their patrons have a more efficient research journey. We've talked about co-usage. I've shown the chart on the left previously, which shows graphically how users move from one subject to another subject and from one content type, books, to another content type, journals. On the right-hand side of this chart, you can see specific data for Egypt. And this shows between January 2015 and January 2020, how co-usage trends are increasing in Egypt. Now, I have to say, this chart is very similar for almost all countries and all territories globally. But you can see here for Egypt how co-usage trends are upwards. You can see peaks and you can see troughs, and we always expect that peaks, particularly around the start of the year and the start of the academic year. But there's a clear trend upwards in co-usage between books and journals. And the reason we're showing this, of course, is to emphasize how important having the access to books and journals is in order to facilitate this co-usage. So here's a voice of one of our customers who says, this is a direct quote from a customer: "The greatest aspect of Science Direct is that you can find all relevant information in one place. This interconnected approach really helps get an overall idea about the whole topic." This is the value that I'm talking about. So in the final section, I want to talk about how we're committed to delivering quality, because of course, all the technology in the world is only as good as the content quality that it helps to deliver. And as a publishing director, this is perhaps the area that's closest to my heart. But also we're committed to delivering content that is of a significantly higher quality than the industry average. So just some statistics here for you. This is data from 2019, which is the last year for which we have a full data available. 18% of global research output is found in Elsevier journals. So that's a significant proportion. But what's very interesting, I think, is that even though Elsevier has only 18% of the total of global output, 26% of global article citations are to Elsevier journal content. So the rate of citation is higher than the rate of publishing that Elsevier does, which shows the quality of our content. Now, if we look at books, 16.5 is the average number of citations per book to Elsevier content. This is the highest average number of citations per book in the industry, which I think reflects the quality of content that is found in Elsevier books. And Elsevier books have the highest relative citation impact among major book publishers as well. What that means is, and I can show this on the next slide, let's look at relative citation impact. So if we just look at data for Egypt, between 2015 and 2019, Scopus shows that there were just over 82,000 articles from authors based in Egypt published. Of those 82,000 articles, 62% contain book citations. Now, that alone, I think, is an important figure. That shows that Egyptian authors are citing books in 16% of the articles they publish. It's essential that they have access to those books in order to be able to cite them. Of those cited books, 22% were to Elsevier books. So again, what we can see here is that the rate of citation to Elsevier books is higher than the number of articles citing books. So only 6% of books on Scopus are from Elsevier titles, yet 22% of Egyptian authors are citing Elsevier books. So that's a relative impact of 3.5%. Again, this is just one indicator, I think, of the quality of Elsevier book content and how important it is for Egyptian researchers to have access to that book content. So let me finish with a brief overview of our content strategy. And I want to emphasize this because this is underpinning the quality of our content and the quality of the books that we publish. And our content strategy, I think, can be summarized in 3 bullets. It is user-focused. We absolutely focus on publishing books and book content that our users need. It is data-driven. We ensure that we publish books on subjects that we know are of importance. We use data to decide what titles we publish. And finally, we're laser focused on delivering content on critical and emerging topics, on topics that are of most importance and relevance to our customers. So what does that mean? So we build the Elsevier book strategy in broadly 2 ways. As I mentioned earlier, we have a data-driven approach. So our acquisition and our publishing decisions are driven by the type of data that we get from Scopus and from SciVal, which helps us see what is happening in the world of research. We look at Science Direct, we look at the usage on Science Direct. And we look at what our customers are doing and what our customers are saying about the work that they're undertaking in order to make these decisions about what new content we have to bring onto the platform. And using this data, we can assess reader priorities, we can assess funding trends, we can assess where there are gaps in the available published knowledge, and we can assess who the best possible author or authors are to write the books that we publish. And this is what we mean by a user-focused, data-driven approach. We always seek to work with world-class authors. Having the best authors gives our customers and our researchers the highest level of confidence in the content that we use. Our acquisition editors therefore recruit the best authors and the most influential experts by identifying leading experts, by partnering with institutions, by nurturing new talent, and by working with established and trusted advisors and organizations. And again, these decisions are driven by data. And the outcomes of this are that we deliver the right content and the right value. We offer books that are dependable, authoritative, and high quality. We ensure that our books cover critical and emerging subject areas as well as providing the foundational content that helps people access areas. We innovate in terms of our content and the features of our content, and we always ensure that our content is aligned with the Elsevier Journals program to ensure that that co-usage, that interdisciplinary use that I've talked so much about in this presentation is maximized. And the result of this is content across the whole range of science and of research. At Elsevier, we have a front list of about 1,200 new titles a year. It's not necessarily the biggest front list in the business, but what we're very confident of is it's the best aligned front list. By being data-led, we ensure that we're publishing titles in areas that are most important to the world, using the data that I talked about earlier. So, thank you for your time there. I think I've used up my 45 minutes or so. We have about 12 minutes left for the session, and what I would like to do now is open it up to questions. I'm happy to take questions on anything that I've spoken about, and I'm sure my colleagues would also like now to join us and answer any questions more generally about Elsevier and its services that you may have.
Absolutely. Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you. I am looking at the Q&A option for questions, and I don't see any question. Only there was one question that we're asking if this session could be also offered in Arabic later on, because I have a lot of comments in the chat that they are really liking the presentation, very informative, very accurate in data. So very, very good response. There are no questions in the Q&A. I don't know if we just ask you to please, if you have any question, to please take the moment now for asking. And yeah, thank you so much, Jonathan. It was a very, very nice presentation, very informative as well.
Well, it's my pleasure, and I really do hope that I've been able to share just a little of the value of what we do. I've worked for Elsevier for, well, over 18 years now, and it's been a journey for me that's moved from being, when I started, it was all about traditional print books, and my career has now evolved where of course we still have print books, and I still love books, and I live in a house full of books. But it's been incredible to see how the world has moved to digital, And it's something that is so exciting. And I hope I've been able to share some of the excitement of working with technology in a way that really helps to liberate this content and really make it work for libraries and of course ultimately for the patrons of libraries. That for me is one of the most exciting parts of my work, is really helping solve the problems that we know researchers face. So I hope I've been able to give just a small flavor of that excitement. And I am sorry that I have not been able to deliver my presentation in Arabic. I apologize that I'm limited to English, but I'm sure my colleagues will help summarize some of this.
Absolutely, absolutely, and of course, like we will look later on for the possibility for also, yeah, maybe later on for offering a session in the language, of course. But so far, I could see that most I would say all of the comments that we got from the chat is very positive. So I would like also to thank you and to thank the team for attending, for thank you all the participants that were in this webinar. I would like to, just an end note before we leave. If you would like to download your certificate of participation via Research Academy, these are the instructions to do it. Right now, I'm going to copy the link of Research Academy into the chat box, and the code, basically you have to access first to this link that we are showing right now. And just at this moment, I'm going to copy it at the chat box. And the second step is to please write down the code that it is there, this KTF6, all in capital letters, please. After that, the system will ask you to answer a small survey of 6 questions max, and then you can download your certificate directly. I just post in the chat box the link to do it and the code to download the certificate. I have a question here from our colleague, Summer. Let me just read it.
Yes, Natalia.
Yes, please, Summer.
Yeah,
please
yeah,
go
thank
ahead.
you. Yeah, first of all, thanks, Jonathan, for your support for the Egyptian researchers and the Elsevier local team here. I'm Samir Gamal, the Regional Director for Africa, and I'm the one that overlooking for the Egyptian engagement here. So I have a question on behalf of the Egyptian researchers, if you allow me, Jonathan, that what would be your advice for the Egyptian authors to increase their published books with Elsevier? Because honestly, I have seen a little bit low numbers when it comes to the Egyptian authors publishing books with Elsevier. So your advice will be really highly appreciated, because I believe all Egyptian researchers are looking forward to publish books with Elsevier.
Of course. Well, as publishing director, it's ultimately my role to ensure that we do find and help authors to publish with Elsevier. So thank you for the question. Yes, I mean, so at Elsevier, we have a principle that we want to work with the best possible authors, irrespective of their location. However, I also recognize that a critical part of my role is to help facilitate publication, because we do know that there are parts of the world where authors are perhaps underrepresented. And that's something that we're very aware of. It's something that we track. And it's something that's central to my job to really ensure we have, as far as possible, balanced global representation. And based on the slides I was showing earlier, we can see that research output from Egypt is increasing. So it's important that we also see the number of Egyptian authors increasing to reflect that and to represent that success. So what I would suggest, and it's a relatively, what I want to do is give a brief answer to this question. What I would actually suggest is that anyone who is interested in writing for Elsevier can do one of two things. Perhaps the simplest is to follow up on the link that you see on the page here to the Elsevier Researcher Academy, where we have a range of tools and resources available for prospective authors that really talk about how you can access publishing and how to access Elsevier as a partner in helping you to publish. Now, there's a range of material there and support materials, including some videos, some tutorials, some guidance that will give you a starting point for getting published. But there's potentially an even simpler approach, and that would be to approach somebody like me. And I would be, my door or my email inbox is always open to talk with prospective authors or groups of authors. So in addition to running events such as this ebook forum, we run author workshops as well, where we can really get into the detail of how to publish. And a lot of that is simply about making the right connections, identifying what it is that you want to publish, and then talking with publishers about the most effective way to do that. So in the very short space of time that I have available, that's my simple answer, which is understand how an organization like Elsevier can help you to get published by using the resources on the Researcher Academy site, but reach out as well. You will find contact details on the Researcher Academy from myself and others who can get in touch. And if anybody would like to follow up after this meeting, I would be very, very happy to talk directly with individuals about opportunities.
Absolutely.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Jonathan.
Thank you, Summers. Thank you, Jonathan. Additionally to this, I would like also to mention that on the 22nd of October, we are going to offer an author workshop for ebooks, and we are going to share all the details about the timing and about the workshop. But for all the participants that would like to go further on the publishing of ebooks as well, for you to keep it in your agenda for the 22nd of October. And I have one more question here at the chat, Jonathan, if I may, from Dr. Risk Ravea. She is asking which you prefer, ebook or a normal book?
That's an interesting question. From a professional perspective, ebooks, and the reason I say that is that the flexibility and the discoverability of digital content is so much stronger than a physical print book. Now, I would also be the first person to admit that reading a physical book is a more comfortable experience. So depending how much you have to read, the print book will win. And certainly in my own private life, I read print books rather than digital books. But when we look at the needs of researchers and driving outcomes and supporting discovery and understanding what it is that leads to success for students and for researchers, the power of the ebook eclipses the print book, and we have to reflect that. And so the publishing that we design and the way we publish our books, the way we work with our authors, is geared to optimize that digital experience. The ebook, I think, has revolutionized the world in the same way that the printing press revolutionized the world 400 years ago. It really is the next digital revolution. And so from that perspective, the power of the ebook just cannot be underestimated.
Absolutely, absolutely. I totally agree with that as well, Jonathan. Thank you very much for answering this question. I do not see any more questions at the moment. If you have, please, a direct question, if you could please write it down on the Q&A. And if there are no more questions, I think we are just 1 minute after 1. So I would like to thank you so much, Jonathan, for this webinar session. Thank you for all our participants for being so interactive, and as well, like being so interested in this ebook session. We hope to see you very soon in our following webinar. And thank you so much. Keep safe.
Thank you, everybody.
You.
Goodbye.
Thank you. Goodbye. Bye. Thanks.